Alright, welcome to part 3, the final version of segment and angle addition postulate and midpoints. In this part of the video, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty algebraic problems you could see that may get a little challenging, and I wanted to show a few examples. So, we're going to use the definition of midpoint and properties of algebra to determine the length of a segment. So let's look at an example. It says Q is the midpoint of PR. So you know me, I'm going to draw a sketch first. So PR are your endpoints. Q is the midpoint, so I'm going to go ahead and make these tick marks to show they're the same. I'm going to label my picture. PQ is 4x minus 5. So the first part is 4x minus 5. The second part is 11 plus 2x. And it wants me to find the length of PQ. But I have no idea what the entire whole thing is, so I can't use my segment addition postulate of part plus part equals whole. So with midpoint, since I know they're congruent, I know they're equal, I can go ahead and just set those two equations equal. Okay? Once you solve that equation, they subtracted 2x first, and then they added 5, and then they got 8. Okay? So that's how you find the variable of x equals 8. So ultimately, I need to find what PQ is. So I'm going to have to substitute 8 into the equation of PQ. And that's what they did down here. 4x minus 5 became 4 parentheses 8 minus 5 to get our final number of 27. So if you have two equations and you know it's a midpoint, you can go ahead and set them equal. You can solve for x, and we can substitute in. So what they did was they plugged in, well, hey, I know this is 27. I know my other part has to be 27 because it's a midpoint, and then I can actually find the whole entire thing by adding the two together. Okay, so lots of steps. So let's try some practice. We need some. All right, I'm not going to lie, they don't give you a lot of room at all, so I highly recommend getting a separate sheet of paper out for trying A, B, and C, because it's a lot of work to be shown and not a lot of room on the paper. All right, so again, try A, B, and C. Don't forget to draw a picture to help you out, and press pause and we'll go over the answers. All right, guys, so your final answer for A should have been 26. So again, if you got this answer, please feel free to skip on. So A's answer was 26, B's answer was 4 and 7, and then C's answer was 3 and 9. So if you got those answers, please move on. If you did not, let's go over it. So on A, you had to draw a picture, and then it gave you the second part, and it gave you the whole entire thing knowing it was a midpoint. So first off, we know that a midpoint is the same. So if YD is x plus 3, I can go ahead and copy it over here for WY. So that was the main thing. You had to copy that x plus 3 over. Then there are two ways to set up your equation with the segment addition postulate. You could say this part plus this part equals the whole. Or we could have gotten a little fancier with the distributive property. I know I have 2 of my x plus 3's, and that will equal the whole. So again, either way of writing it, you will still get the same answer. So you would solve this multi-variable equation, and then you would get x equals 10. Final answer wanted you to find WZ, so I had to plug it in or substitute it into the whole entire thing to get 26. Okay? So biggest thing, you have two ways of writing your equation, and then just make sure if you know one part, you're totally able to copy that equation over for the other midpoint. All right, moving on to B. So on part B, it gave you both parts of the midpoint. It did not give you the whole, so I could not do segment addition postulate. I had to set them equal because I know midpoints are equal. Once you solve that equation, you do get x is 4, and then it wanted you to find RM, so you'd plug it into this first part to get 7. So that one wasn't too bad. On C over here, it gave you a part in the whole again, so I had to do something similar to A. I needed to duplicate this x plus 6. So you could have had x plus 6 plus x plus 6 equals your whole. I kind of shortened it with the distributive property and said I had 2x plus 6's. I would distribute this and then subtract 2x. I subtracted 3. and I got x was equal to 3. And then it wanted me to find SM, and so I know that was the same equation as RM, so I substituted in 3 to get 3 plus 6 to get 9. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions on the algebra behind midpoint and segment addition, because these are pretty much as hard as they get. They don't really get any crazier. But if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to move on. So the next important word we're going to learn is bisect. And so when you bisect a geometric figure, you're going to divide it into 2 equal parts or 2 congruent parts. So it's very similar to what a midpoint is. So let's draw a picture. So it says line segment WZ is bisecting XY. So I'm going to go ahead and draw XY first. So this line is cutting in half XY. So kind of pretend like a knife. We can kind of even get this little choppy tool. It's cutting it in half. Okay, so this is WZ. And where they meet, it actually tells me it's at point Z. So again, I have WZ, it's like a knife. It is cutting in half or bisecting my line segment XY. So what am I able to conclude about this information? So I know if it's a bisector, I know it cuts into 2 equal parts. So I can go ahead and say, well, I know this part has to be equal to this part, very similar to a midpoint. So I know that XZ has to be congruent or equal to ZY. Okay? I can also tell that Z is going to be the midpoint. Okay? So again, bisecting is pretty tricky because the first word is what's happening to the second terminology, so that you have to draw the second terminology first. Because I definitely just messed that up beforehand. Okay? All right, guys. We are finally done with this insanely long video. 3 parts, so much. But I want you guys to try 15 through 18. We're going to go over these. And then your homework tonight is going to be to do 19 through 24 on a separate sheet of paper. Okay? But we are going to try 15 through 18, and then we will go over them. So press pause, try those 4, and we'll go over the answer. So let's go over our answers to 15. It says, how can you find the distance between 2 points on a number line? The answer is to subtract the coordinates of the points and make sure you're taking the absolute value. Okay. Number 16, Mikai shows that JH is 7 and HJ is 7. Based on this information, he says that H has to be the midpoint. Is he correct? Yes or no, and why? So this one is tricky. So if you drew this kind of picture, which I'm sure y'all did, you would say, well, yes, he's correct. It's the midpoint. However, they did not say that H was in between G and J. So for that reason, you could draw this picture. You could have GH going one direction, JH going the other direction, and then H is not the midpoint. So the biggest thing is for midpoint, you have to say it's in between the line. Okay, so that one was a little tricky. On 17, this is my picture over here. So T is the midpoint. The whole thing was 5x minus 3. Part of it was 2x plus 1, and so I didn't have the other part. So again, I can duplicate it. I can repeat it because the midpoint is the same. So overall, you should have had 4x plus 2 equals 5x minus 3. Once you solve that equation, you would get x equals 5. Ultimately, you wanted you to find JK, which is the whole thing. So I'm going to substitute 5 into my whole entire equation to get the final answer of 22. And last but not least, on 18, it says that we have a point A that is located at -6, so I kind of drew a picture. And it says that AB is a distance of 20 units. What are the 2 possible values of B? So again, I could go in the positive direction and say -6 plus a 20, which is going to give you 14. But also I can go in the negative direction and go 20 units in the negative direction, and so I would say negative 6 minus a 20, which is going to get be negative 26. Okay, so again, if you have one value and you know the distance, you can go one direction the positive way or one direction the negative way. Okay? All right, guys, that is it. That is segment addition postulate and midpoints. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, here is your homework. Have fun. Thanks for watching.